Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Having finished with the result of meditation on the vital force, the Shruti resumes its allegorical form and goes on. Why should the vital force in the mouth be resorted to as oneself, to the exclusion of the organ of speech and the rest? To explain this by stating reasons, the Shruti points out through the story that it is because the vital force is the common self of the organ of speech, etc., as well as of the body.
Te hochuhu kvanuso bhudyo na itama shakteti ayamasye tariti Ayāsya Āṅgirasa Āṅgirasa.
They, the organs of Prajapati, which were restored to their divinity by the vital force in the mouth, and thus attained their goal, said, "Where was he who has thus restored us to our divinity?" The particle nu indicates deliberation. People who have been helped by somebody generally remember their benefactor. The organs likewise remembered, and thinking on who it might be, realized the vital force within themselves, in the aggregate of body and organs. How? Here he is within the mouth, is visibly present within the ether that is in the mouth. People decide after deliberation. So did the gods. Since the vital force was perceived by them as being present in the internal ether, without assuming any particular form like that of the organ of speech, etc., therefore the vital force is called Ayāsya. And since it did not assume any particular form, it restored the organ of speech, etc., to their real status. Hence it is Āṅgirasa, the self of the body and organs. How? For it is, as is well known, the essence, that is, the self, of the members, that is, of the body and organs. And how is it the essence of the members? Because, as we shall say later on, without it they dry up. Since, being the self of the members and not assuming any particular form, the vital force is the common self of the body and organs, and pure, therefore it alone, to the exclusion of the organ of speech, etc., should be resorted to as one's self. This is the import of the passage. For the self alone should be realized as one's self, since correct notions lead to well-being, and erroneous notions, as we find, lead to evil. Namaste. So the vital force, prana, chi, or ki, as it's termed in different cultures, is the life energy, prana, and its various forms, prana, udana, samana, and so on. We can learn about that in all various sources. The important thing here is that one should regard it as one's self. Why is that? It's formless, therefore it's pure. It cannot be corrupted by demonic forces. Only if we use the vital force to attain material ends, we're actually wasting its full potential. Because the vital force is immortal within the limits of the existence of the universe. So if one identifies with the vital force, that means one never has to die. This is so important, so powerful. So we have presented over the years various different methods of dealing with, cultivating, and meditating on the vital force. This is the key to especially the first stage of enlightenment, the first path, that one should meditate on the self as the vital force. And this leads to transcending the forms of the limbs of the body. The vital force is named Ayāsya. Ayāsya means indefatigable, undefeatable, victorious, virtuous. And Āṅgirasa means the essence of the limbs or organs of the body. Because without it, the organs are powerless. They don't work, they fail, they die, actually. So death is the failure to recognize the prana as the self. If one knows oneself as vital force, as prana, then he's ayasya. He cannot be defeated. Because as long as we live, we are powerful. And the vital force lives forever, in all practical terms, at least within this universe. So we should identify with the vital force. Now, how can we do that? Well, one way is by meditation on the breath, anapanasati, or pranayama in the yoga system. Another way is qigong, cultivation of qi, and we've done several series on that over the years. Of course, nobody watches them or gives us any feedback on them, but that's YouTube, I guess. Then also one can cultivate knowledge of astrology, Ayurvedic medicine, and so on, all of which refer back to the power of the vital force. Because it is the vital force that creates all the symptoms, whether of health or disease. And it's the vital force that goes through changes in response to the configurations of the planets and so on. Because the astrological chart is set for the moment of birth, that's when the vital force comes in contact with the senses and the world, the sense objects, for the first time. Well, this is a very patterning moment. It creates a pattern which is repeated over and over again in the individual's life, because it is reinforced by a tremendous trauma of birth, of being forced through the birth canal and so on. By what? Prana. The mother's prana, in this case, forces the fetus out through the birth canal. And that becomes the trauma that at the moment of birth, more or less records the position of the stellar objects, imprints it deep in the mind. And this pattern then becomes a template for further experiencing. So by knowing the configuration of the planets and the environment and so on at the moment of birth, one can make very accurate predictions about the following course of life. Similarly, if one knows qigong, or pranayama, you can as good as read people's minds. Because if you become aware of your prana, you also become aware of others. And since the prana is what basically determines a person's state of being, you can read them like a book. It's not difficult. Well, you want to know how to do that. Well, as usual, it requires work. You have to work on yourself. And specifically, you have to withdraw your identification from the gross organs to the subtle prana. This is done by meditation. Therefore, My Qigong teacher used to tell us after every Qigong session you should meditate. And she never gave any instructions about meditation. But since her husband was a great Zen master, we can guess what the nature of that meditation is. Zen meditation is also meditation on the vital force. That's why the monks in Zen meditation place their hands in a certain mudra by the third chakra, the energy storage chakra. So, see, this all fits together. It all makes sense. It all makes a whole. If you realize it, if you just think about it, you'll be lost. You will never come to a final conclusion or a conclusive understanding. You will be speculating and guessing and this and that. And really the only certain knowledge is by experience. So you should experience this work. That's what the Upanishads are for. That's why they were taught in the forest. Brihad, great. Aranyaka, in the forest. Upanishad, the esoteric secrets. What are they? The practices that give you the siddhi, the power to realize the self. This is the ultimate conclusion of the Vedas. Aum Tat Sat. Aum Shakti Aum. Aum Namah Shivaya.